piece it together. They ask why. Every hidden corner, every alibi. They risk it all, they take the fall for the truth that will stand tall.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. So I'm going to give a little time for people to stop in. But today I'm going to be talking just about, I guess, the history of my research on these fires. And this is the whole reason I have this channel, why I still make content to this day, because the August of 2023 fire of Lahaina really, caught my attention. I'm from Hawaii. So when I started to hear about what happened on that day, I instantly knew there was something not right. And I dug into that. And I thought I would go to another topic, but and from then on, there were so many big fires. So I continued to report on this topic. And I think at this point, I've covered, I would say, at least 40, maybe more fires all over the world, from the US, South America, Asia, Europe, also the storms, tornadoes, floods, all of these weather events that have become so prevalent that we question what's really causing it. So I'm going to share my more recent findings on the fires, because I've been to some of these places. I've seen the damage. I've spoken to people that were in them. I've studied many, and there are some that cannot be explained with a do. I need to have, for me to say that this is what caused these all, I just need more evidence. And there is a pattern or a connection that some of these have to other things, other earth events, mainly seismic activity caused by the shifting of the tectonic plates, fault activity, and volcanic activity. And we are experiencing more of all of them. We are getting more earthquakes. There are also volcanoes that are exploding in ways that we haven't seen for like 1,000 years. There are dormant volcanoes that have exploded, like the Hunga Tonga event. So I started to look at the big picture, and I've noticed that there are connections between all of those things. And then towards the end of this presentation, I'll provide some explanations as to why these things seem to be happening in the same place. Okay, and I'll get to some comments. If you want to say where you're watching from. Oh, Indiana. Okay, maybe I'll come back, midway, I'll come back to some of the comments. So if you guys want to put in, where you're from, and if you're from one of these areas and have information you want to share, because I do get a lot of emails and comments telling me about what they're going through. I know I get a lot of comments, not just in Hawaii, but in North Carolina, where Helene was. A lot of people in Canada have been experiencing these events over and over again. Okay, so I'll see. Okay, Los Angeles, California, St. Louis, Sarasota, Florida, Seattle, Alberta, Canada, Central Arkansas, Oahu, Hawaii, Northern California, Tennessee, Guthrie, Oklahoma, Northern California, St. Augustine, Florida, Redondo Beach, California, Clearwater, Florida, west of Denver, Colorado, Central California, Pensacola, Florida, Arizona. Oh, hi, Spice. Spice in Maui. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I'll come back to some comments. So, I've been really putting this topic off for a long time because I know a lot of people aren't going to be for this. I think a lot of people are going to be in denial, especially people that have been following my content, because it brings in another layer of complexity. But the more I dig into this topic, the more complicated it seems to be. I very strongly believe in these ideas that I'm going to share today. And it's unfortunate that it makes this topic harder to understand. But it would be doing a disservice if I didn't share these thoughts. And I've had them for a while. And no one told me this. This is from my observations, my research looking at what's going on all around the world, what's going on with the sun, what's going on with the spraying in the air, what's going on with the chemicals and particles that are in our environment more so now than before. It involves a lot of these things. The change in the electromagnetic pull or balance that the Earth has, it's changing a lot. I don't understand that quite as well as I'd like, but there are people online that have been sharing these shifts in the electromagnetic pulls in the Earth, and they are noticing that there is a shift and there are changes that are happening more so now than before. Okay, so the main connection that I'm going to share is the connection between areas that are getting a lot of fires. These tend to be, not all, but they tend to be very intense. They tend to be widespread, and they tend to be near very seismically active areas. The area where I feel like there is the most evidence is in Chile. So Chile is one of the most seismic areas in the world. The strongest earthquake on record was a 9.5 is in Chile. They have a lot of devastating earthquakes, and it's been this way for a long time. And here, this is what AI said, areas where they have a lot of earthquakes and the strongest. So number 2, Concepcion, that is where a massive amount of land was burned last month. Santiago also has a lot of earthquakes, also a lot of fire activity. And then number 6, that's the area that I'm going to focus more in on, Valparaiso. They have had so many fires. When I was looking into this, I couldn't believe how many times Valparaiso has burned. Okay, so the reason they get, this is the fires. So the reason Chile is so prone to earthquakes and seismic activity, there's a huge trench offshore that goes parallel to Chile. It's called the Atacama Trench. And the fault lines go all up and down Chile. So sometimes the earthquakes are where the trench is. Sometimes they are on land or near the trench. So those red dots are all the dots. These are where earthquakes have happened. And then here is where the most recent fire outbreak happened. And it was not just in Chile, it was also in Argentina. We consider them Patagonia fires, but Chile is also very prone to fires. I'll play some clips of these are all Valparaiso. So I think the third fire, maybe the second fire I covered were the Chilean fires of Valparaiso and Vista del Mar. And these were very devastating. It covered a huge area and it also burned down a lot of homes. It is a coastal city, it's densely populated, and it has burned. And I'll put up some like evidence soon. April of 2014, February of 2015, January of 2017, December of 2019, February of 2024, February of 2023. They've had fires in the same exact area. Here is a little clip from 2015.
Chile, hundreds of families have been evacuated because of a forest fire in the region of Valparaiso. The National Emergency Office informed that over 2,000 hectares of vegetation were burned by the fire, which began last Saturday. The situation forced the national government to declare a red alert in Casablanca and Valparaiso. Firemen.
Here's 2017. All right, this doesn't have anyone talking. But I found many videos, but when I asked the search or when I asked AI how many fires were in this area, it only started with the most recent fires starting, I think, in 2023. So it seems like they're trying to hide this fact and trying to make it seem like it's just a recent thing, but this is not a recent thing. There's 2017.
A un terreno y construyen una casa con sus propios recursos y generalmente esos están en los lugares de más difícil acceso, donde no hay redes de grifo, donde cuesta mucho llegar, donde las calles son muy estrechas y que también la materialidad con la cual están fabricadas son de fácil combustión.
And with these types of fires, I also noticed they seem to come from the ground. Like in that clip, it was mostly the ground and the bases of the trees that were burned. And then this is our coverage of the most recent, the Patagonia fires.
So this is the two clusters of fires that happened in Argentina. They actually happened about a week or so before the fires in Chile. And then these are the clusters of fires in Chile. You can see near the top center of the screen, there was, I think, maybe 30 fires in Chile alone. And the most intense of them was near a town called Concepcion. This particular burn scar is over 20 miles long, and it impacted the towns, the coastal towns of Penco, Lircán, and Punta de Para. And out of those three towns, 90+% of the structures were destroyed.
Okay, here's a clip, just a visual of 2017. These didn't get a lot of attention. Most of these didn't even get like 1,000 views, these videos. Christmas of 2019. And this was February of 2023. And then today, this is in Santiago, Chile, but this is a small one, a textile factory. I think it's maybe still on fire. But I've noticed this as a pattern. Did I show this one? Okay, this is 2014. I didn't go further from 2014, but when I watched more of those clips, it seems like the locals there are like, they're used to it. Of course, they say it's just because it's dry and it's hot. So, we get a lot of fires. That seems to be what they think. The only time I heard locals saying they thought there was an ulterior motive, was this last outbreak of fires in Patagonia. And they are claiming that a certain country in the Middle East wants to claim that land. And that very well might be the case, because 1 month before the Patagonia fires broke out, the president, Milei, changed the law and said if land is burnt by a fire, outside investors or outside people can buy it, whereas before they couldn't. So I think they are aware, the powers that be know ahead of time. I think it depends on the situation. I think sometimes they might have weeks, they might have months, they might have years to plan for these things, but they don't seem to tell the public ahead of time. And I think there are some good but some bad reasons why they don't tell the public where these events are going to happen. And if you're familiar with the work of Dutch Sins, he can predict earthquakes, yet, the government, USGS, does not admit that they can predict earthquakes, and they don't warn people when a big one is coming, even though we know that there is a way to predict them, and we know that there is a way to cause them. So there are two things that are possibilities there. Okay, I'll touch a little on the Japan fire. It was in an area called Oita, and that is in the southernmost island of Kyushu, and it's a port area. It's right on the water. And that little island that you see on the right, that island was also burned. And we did cover this one. This was like in the fall of last year. And I'll play some footage from Japan. So they have that Sanseki Island that burned. This wasn't a big fire. It took down, I think, maybe a couple dozen structures, but it was put out pretty quickly. And this island that burned, there are no structures and no one lives on that island. So with this one, I thought it was very strange that, if this was an intentional thing. I just couldn't figure out why. I predict this area will rebuild. There was a fuel, like a oil refinery here, which also seems to be, oil refineries seem to be catching fire a lot. I think in California, just this last year, there were at least 3 oil refineries to catch fire. Also, battery facilities where they make lithium batteries, those seem to catch fire very frequently. Okay, and then here's one more from Japan. So this is when it was active. It didn't go too long. I think by the next day, it was under control. Japan generally doesn't get a lot of fires. It's a fairly humid area. It does get very hot over the summer, but it's not a desert environment, at least not that I've seen. Okay. And what I found with that town of Oita, it's on a fault line. So I'll show the area of Japan. It's one of the most seismic areas in the world. They have had some of the largest earthquakes on record, probably second to Chile. But it's where 3 tectonic plates intersect. And there's a fault lines that go through the country. And Japan is made up of a number of islands as well as volcanoes. And if you look at this visual, on the far left is the town of Oita. So it does lay on a fault line. Okay, I think that's all I have for Japan. And then I looked a little bit. I didn't go too far because, I mean, when I'm starting to look into this, there's just so much information and there's so much going on as far as, changes in weather, changes in the solar activity, and what we're learning about how the solar activity affects the Earth and how I'll play that later, but just how the sun can cause the weather and seismic activity to happen. Okay. And then another area that we've seen a lot of fires is in Canada. And Canada is also a very seismic area. So those dots on the left, there is a trench there. And that's why you see a lot of earthquakes that happen off the west coast of Canada. I don't think I put the visual up. Oh, I think I wrote it down. Okay. The most fires that happened in Canada over the past couple years since I've been researching this is British Columbia. And that is the western, what do they call them in Canada? Not the territories, but the westernmost, that word, like they divide the country into like sections, not states, but British Columbia is on the far west. Next to that is Alberta. Next to that is Manitoba. And those are the areas that have had the most fires. I didn't bring up too much of Canada. Let me just see if I have. Okay, so this is where the most earthquakes in Canada. It's particularly off the coast of British Columbia. And it does lie on the Pacific Ring of Fire, is where that Pacific fault line does hit another one of the plates. And there are some in Eastern Canada, but there are far more earthquakes and seismic activity in Western Canada. So when I covered the Kilauea volcano and how active it's been, that's when I learned about the solar activity and how that can actually cause, earthquakes, volcano eruptions, and like plasma ejections from the earth. So basically like lightning that comes from the ground up. And let me play, so I'll play some clips from Ben Davidson and Stephen Burns. Stephen Burns is a astrophysicist, so he understands, the sun, planets, and how it affects the earth. Forgot which one I wanted to show. Okay, I think this might be Ben Davidson.
We are also in acute plasma pressure equalization territory of the Earth capacitor, basically the secret sauce underlying many pre-earthquake electromagnetic anomalies. To put it simply, Earth can take in, store, and then discharge energy from space. This happens in the ionosphere, the atmosphere, and the ground beneath our feet. Plasma pressure works a lot like air pressure. When the sun is pounding us and the plasma pressure in near-Earth space is high, we absorb and take in and often store that energy. During quiet periods, the Earth likes to discharge out into the lower plasma pressure environment. Well, we just took in a tremendous amount of solar energy last week, and This would be about as sharp a change as you can get. While earthquakes and weather phenomena are possible, it is actually the volcanic and human emotional states that have shown the greatest impact from pressure reduction planetary release.
Okay, and this is the one that I think he explains how the Earth acts as a capacitor.
The question was about how this worked, the upward lightning bolt from the Statue of Liberty a few days ago. It's an Earth discharge. This is, in fact, a fairly common occurrence, and it is a critical part of the global electric circuit. We usually discuss the circuit in terms of weather effects, so if the ground aspect isn't in your head, that's understandable, but the floor of the circuit is indeed the Earth's crust. The downward currents occur on sunny days in fair weather, high pressure, and while some of the upward current in low pressure comes from thunderclouds, its genesis is often in the ground, sometimes fantastically as we saw at the Statue of Liberty. The Earth is in fact a capacitor. It can charge and discharge, and it does so all the time. For those with our textbook, page 162 of Weatherman's Guide to the Sun has the relevant studies confirming several previous ones. Low pressure systems and the static attraction of clouds can stir up the energy in the ground into the air for the upward currents, and sometimes it's quite a big discharge.
So I think that's why we're seeing more of this thing called dry lightning. So lightning that's coming out without like a storm. I know we saw a lot of this in the Western US, and I think there are fires that were blamed on this event. I can't say for sure, but I do know that when this charge comes up from the earth, it can cause a fire. And I think that's why we are seeing certain situations where it's the ground mainly that's on fire. The first time I noticed this was when I went to Camarillo, and it was very blatant. So I think it was the end of 2024, before the big LA fires broke out. There were like sporadic fires in Camarillo. Camarillo is about a 30-minute drive from Malibu. It's not that close, but it's not that far. It's a more sparsely populated area. It's not like a densely populated area. It's kind of an affluent area as well. But I noticed the burning was mainly on the ground. So I think this burned. Yeah. So this net. See that? Yeah. So the base, but not the top. See, the top of the net's fine. Some blue stuff, but there's nothing. Fire was coming out from underneath it. It was like the ground. So that's the first time I saw that in person, where the fire was just at the base and it didn't even kind of carry up the net, which I thought was weird because the dried leaves, I think a lot of those were eucalyptus. It should have gone, the fire should have risen and took the net down. But it really seemed like the ground was burned much more than anything else. I also saw firefighters with these shovels hacking into the dirt with a little hose and hosing down the underground fire. And I remember talking to them and saying like, "Oh, why is there the fire? Why is it underground?" And they were like, "This is totally normal. You know, the fire starts underground, or it's mainly underground." It always stuck with me as being unusual. And then this is another one of, there were a lot of, not a lot, but there were sporadic cars, motorhomes that were destroyed, yards and homes. But it was unusual that it wasn't in one area. It was like kind of spread out throughout the town.
Helps anything out with the Maui stuff because
Yeah.
I know that was
No.
totally intentional.
Yeah.
Oh, then to come and give the people $750, what a freaking
Yeah.
show.
Not everyone even got
Maui's
it.
my favorite. I've been to Maui many times.
Yeah. So this is a black car. Oh wow, the aluminum is all puddled. Completely leveled. And the wires are left. And then the glass is all melted. Yeah, this looks like that Maui car.
Was there anything else burning other than this is pretty much this car?
This is a 35-foot fifth wheel motorhome.
That was motorhome?
That was a 35-foot fifth wheel motorhome.
Yeah, and the thing that was, I still can't explain it. I don't know how metal melts into liquid over dried eucalyptus leaves and dried branches and doesn't catch the branches or trees on fire. Just very, very unusual. That clip was taken the day after these fires happened. So I'm pretty sure those branches weren't placed there. I think it was like that when the fire was going on. Here, I could play it one more time. But yeah, this was the first time I saw up close and I was able to talk to someone about what they experienced. And he also said they didn't lose power. They didn't lose like their connection. Their house was okay. They had like a house and then they had like a motor home and cars on the property. But it was just the motor home and the cars that got affected. And then the trees that I showed was also on this property. But just how the metal is so close to, like organic material. I didn't notice it at the time. It wasn't until later that I realized, like, how does that happen, So it seems like the trees were above the melted liquefied metal. And I don't think I've heard like a good explanation for how that happens. Okay. So another area that I started to look into, but I didn't look too much into Hawaii. Something that I remember reporting on, and I could never figure this out. And I think with this little fire, I'm thinking that this came from underground. I'll play the clip right here. And this is in Oahu in Pearl City.
Fire burning on the Pearl City Peninsula. Here's a look at that giant plume of smoke. At one point, it could be seen for miles. The fire has so far burned 5 acres in a marshland area near Lehua Avenue, behind the Hawaiian Electric Power Station. HFD says there is no threat to surrounding structures and there have been no calls for evacuations. The fire is at least 75% contained. Crews expect that they'll be battling the blaze for several more hours.
So power station again was hit, and this was a marsh, so wetlands. And that to me is very strange. First of all, I lived on Oahu for many years, and we didn't have a lot of fires, even like little fires all over the place like we hear now. I don't remember that being a thing. It wasn't till Lahaina where I started to notice fires all the time on the different islands. Maui has them still, the big island. Kauai had a pretty big one. Oahu has had many, just little ones all over the place. And so the only thing I can kind of pick out from the Pearl City fire is that maybe because water is very conductive, and I do notice a lot of these like sporadic fires breaking out next to rivers, gulches, and lakes, and the ocean. That might be something that attracted it to that, along with the power station. It seems like that attracts the fires. Oh, and then Shane, do we have Dutch since? I don't see the clip from Dutch since was really good, but maybe I messed that one up. But maybe Shane can put an explanation. Dutch since does believe that power stations are an attraction for like seismic events and fires. Okay, so I'll come back to that if Shane finds it. So yeah, those are the areas that I wanted to point out. So now I'll provide some information, and I know this makes this even harder to understand because we're looking at multiple factors that are causing this phenomenon. I strongly feel like there are many different things going on. At least 3-4 different sources of this. For example, with Lahaina, there was a huge hurricane that didn't hit Hawaii, but I have a clip here. It was Hurricane Dora.
What are the winds like right now in Maui? Because we know the winds were a big problem for fueling this fire early on.
Well, yeah, but it's the typical trade winds that they have. Here are the winds that we have right now. And here's Maui, and here's the airport that you land on when you go into Hawaii. And they have a northeasterly wind of 25. But yeah, these are typical trade winds from the east and to the northeast. Now, there's been a lot of attribution given to the Hurricane Dora, but I really don't think that this hurricane has had anything to do with the winds here. Here's where the storm is now. It's a powerful hurricane. It's a Category 4 hurricane, but here are where the islands are. And yeah, right now, the storm is moving away, and the closest this storm got was 600 miles. So I really don't think this played much in the way of a role at all.
So the official narrative blamed Hurricane Dora for the reason that there was so much strong winds during the Lahaina fire, which we know is not true because, as you just heard, that hurricane was so far away. I think 500 kilometers at the closest. But I do think that is significant. Another event that I'm convinced was a due event was in New York, when the towers came down. That also had a very strong hurricane offshore, Hurricane Erin. In fact, the news was warning people about going into the city because they thought this hurricane might hit New York. It ended up veering back out into the ocean. But shortly after that is when that big event happened. Now, there's an effect that I don't fully understand. A lot of people don't understand. It's called the Hutchinson's effect. And it has to do with the storm because it's causing so much static electricity, so much energy, big storm especially, that there is a process where you can direct that to something else. I don't know how many people really understand that. It's just something I've heard of and Shane has explained to me. But that's why I wanted to bring up Hurricane Dora. I do feel like with these very severe, very intense, widespread fires where there's a lot of destruction, I think there needs to be an outside source of power. Um, and I don't know if that is related to the seismic activity, the storms that we're seeing affiliated with these events. Oftentimes after a big fire, a storm rolls in and it floods the area. It's happened many, many times. Happened after Lahaina, happened after LA, after Ruidoso. So many times. We did a video on it. And initially I thought, well, maybe they generated that for another reason. But I think that storm is connected to the event of the fire. I think there is something, whether it's the smoke that's released into the air and somehow that causes precipitation to form and then causes the flooding, or something about the energy generated from the fire or from another source of the fire that also leads to the storm. I'm not sure. But what we do know is that storms are connected to seismic activity, namely earthquakes that happened during Hurricane Hillary. I actually experienced that. There were 2 earthquakes right after that storm. It wasn't really a hurricane like the way I think of a hurricane. It was a storm. But I know Ben Davidson talks about that, and Stephen Burns, I think, also has made that connection. Okay, so this is the last layer that I will present today, but there are others. So I'm gonna, I apologize that this is so much more complicated than I initially thought, but I also think the ground in which these fires happen, what's on the ground and what's in the ground has an effect. And I have a clip here, a really short one from Ben Davidson. So certain types of rock will repel energy and some will channel it. So it has to do with the electromagnetic capabilities of that particular rock. So if we're looking at an area that is mainly, for example, I don't know, granite, I think granite is one, I'm not sure, that will take in the energy because it's quartz. I could be wrong, but just for example, if an area is predominantly granite, it will affect the way the energy is coming from the solar activity go down into the earth and act as a capacitor and able to eject that static electricity up. And some will prevent it. So some will just, it won't pass, certain kind of rock. There's also metals and deposits on the ground and in the ground. Certain metals are much more conductive than others. And especially in North America, we have a lot of deposits of metals like silver, gold, graphite. And I have a clip here. This is just some of them, but here are some of the most conductive metals that are in the earth.
Minerals and native elements that conduct electricity. Silver. Native silver is an exceptional electrical conductor, possessing the highest conductivity of all known metals, approximately 63 million Siemens per meter. Its unique property lies in having the highest electrical and thermal conductivity of all metals. Geographically, native silver is distributed globally, often found in association with copper, lead, and zinc ores, with notable occurrences in Peru, Mexico, and the United States. Copper. Native copper is an excellent electrical conductor, second only to silver, with a conductivity of approximately 59,600,000 Siemens per meter. Like silver, its conductivity diminishes at higher temperatures, but it maintains good electrical flow up to its melting point of 1,085 degrees Celsius. Graphite. Graphite exhibits good electrical conductivity, particularly along its layered structure, with conductivity values ranging from 100 to 100,000 Siemens per meter, depending on direction. Due to its stable carbon structure, graphite can conduct electricity at exceptionally high temperatures, well over 2,000 degrees Celsius in inert atmospheres. Its unique property is being an allotrope of carbon with a layered structure, which also makes it soft and a good lubricant. Geographically, graphite is found in metamorphic and igneous rocks, with significant deposits in China, India, and Brazil. Platinum. Native platinum is a good electrical conductor, with a conductivity of approximately 9,400,000 Siemens per meter. It possesses a very high melting point of 1,768 degrees Celsius and maintains good conductivity even at elevated temperatures. Platinum's unique property is its high resistance to corrosion and chemical attack, even under high temperature conditions. Geographically, it is primarily distributed in South Africa, Russia, and North America. Pyrrhotite. Pyrrhotite.
So I think that video names 10 of them, and a lot of them are commonly found. A lot of them are in North America, but all over the world. And I know there are times where we have found these fires to be on top of these deposits. I don't know too much about lithium, but I know lithium is found in Chile a lot, and I know that's why Albemarle is, taking that lithium because of our new power system that we're, moving towards. But lithium is also very commonly found in areas where there's a lot of seismic activity, where there are fault lines. So, when we say, like, what came first? Was it the fire? Or, what is the reason for this fire? But if we're saying that because there are these lithium deposits, that could be the case, but it could be these certain characteristics also can contribute to the fire, the intensity of the fire, and the direction of the fire, like where it's attracted to, where it will be stronger, and possibly the movement of the fire. So those are a couple of things that I've been looking into. But, a lot of these things, I'm not a geologist, and I'm probably not going to go to all these sites, test the ground, and see what the ground is made out of. I don't think I can even dig in the earth, unless it's my land. So we're just going to have to assume that these things are happening, but how they affect these events, we're just going to have to assume we don't really know. I don't exactly know how much of a part that these things play into the fires. But these are just things I've been considering. And was there anything that I missed? So I guess we don't have the Dutch Sense clip. I did see it, but I don't see it here. Maybe this is it.
The ongoing geomagnetic excursion.
Okay, that's not it.
In there and lit up the trees around it. You guys know if I start postulating that there's some kind of volcano going up there, people go nuts. So I'll just tell you, huge wildfires again at another volcanic segment at a time where the plate is shifting and we get major solar activity that came in. So in case you didn't hear in the news in the past couple days, we also had major incoming solar flare activity, or I'm sorry, strong solar wind and solar storm activity, which led to G1, G2 level on the solar storm. But we know that when there's northern lights, again, the aurora borealis, the northern lights, that's electricity up in the upper ionosphere. And that electricity that doesn't just vanish away, it gets absorbed by the Earth's magnetic field and taken down to the ground. I was just getting ready to say, you observe the northern lights and then it gets absorbed down into the plate. Then it goes down to the core of the Earth, and then we see new deep earthquakes.
So I think this phenomena is contributing to a number of events. Okay, I'll get to some comments, and then I have a clip I'll close out with that I think you guys will appreciate. Oh, thank you for becoming a member, Desert Dogo. And then I'll get to some comments. God did it. God gonna keep doing it until we change and repent. I mean, I understand, like, it would be so much easier if this was a simple thing, but it's just not. It's just one of those things that the average person is just not going to have the time to fully understand. And even for me, this is like part of my work, and I still don't fully understand it. For this to be public knowledge or commonly known is unlikely. Indeed, aluminum seems an important element that's been weaponized by the dark ones. Oh, you mean the aluminum in the air? So yeah, aspect I didn't cover today because it's just so much information is the effect that the particles being dispersed in our skies, in our ionosphere, what that is doing. And I'm sure it is having negative effects on the ground. So another layer to this problem. You're being disrespectful. Survivors. No, I didn't say that this was just a solar flare weather pattern, but there is something to this. There's not just one explanation for all of these things. I would be ignorant to think that all of this is from the cabal causing these things. This is so much more complicated than I ever considered it would be. Lahaina is on several metric tons of lithium. I didn't know that. I don't know about lithium being a conductor. I didn't see anything of, I didn't research that, but I didn't see anything. Aluminum dust is also extremely explosive and flammable. Yeah, and so I know Dane Wigington does touch on this, and he thinks that the fires are predominantly from the drying out of vegetation due to the particles that are being sprayed on us. So because these particles are causing trees and the grass to die, it becomes more flammable. And that is his, as far as what I've heard more recently, that is what he has expressed. But he doesn't really, touch the fire thing very much. He's more about just, sticking to the spraying. Mountains of silver and gold in South America. Yeah, and I think it's to the point where there's so many. I mean, when I just did like a quick search of about Valparaiso fires, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 came up that I didn't know of. And I'm assuming you all didn't know that that area had been burned that many times. In Texas, a few years ago, a Ring camera caught a green laser on video. Okay, so I've been sent these videos of like this big laser coming and hitting the ground. Some of them are not real. And something that I've kind of hoped that I would have by now, and every time I feel like it's going to happen, it doesn't. Like, I always feel like a whistleblower is going to come out and spill the beans, say that they were involved. But so far, I haven't heard of someone on the inside, either anonymously or, putting their face out, saying and explaining how this works. So that just makes it really hard. And whenever there's a situation where there's not a lot of explanation given, there's always going to be, conspiracy theories. And there's never going to be a clear answer. Look at, for example, Charlie Kirk. There's so many different theories as to what happened because the officials don't give us good information. They're not telling us what really happened. And so there's been at least 6 or 7 different theories as to how that happened. But if you have a video of a laser starting one of these fires, please email them to me or send them to me. I've heard a number of times like, oh, they saw it, but I haven't actually received a video of one of these fires being started by a laser. And I don't think these are pinpoint lasers aiming like boom, 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 boom. This has to be a widespread energy source, because I've seen like things just in big areas, like fires rise up. And then we're talking about, for example, in LA, almost 3,000 structures destroyed. There has to be a widely cast source of energy. And I think the word laser, because we've been taught what a laser is, like it's this like little pinpoint thing that, like just hits a little pinpoint. I think that's misleading. But I don't know, because I haven't actually seen this with my eyes or seen a video of this actual laser being employed to start a fire. And I've seen like the videos where like someone makes one at home and does like a test run. So I know that's possible. But I think when we're talking about this worldwide phenomena, it's not coming from like a pinpoint laser, like hitting all of these targets. One of the black smoke orbs caught at tower flying around, Dementor looking things. Black smoke orbs. Black smoke orbs. I don't know what the black smoke orb is. Channel Math Easy Solutions. Matt, he found a few UAP circling the towers, big anomalies. Oh, the New York. Okay, so speaking of the UAP thing, the closest that I've gotten, at least like actual evidence that there is some like device that could be causing this, is during the LA fires. There was at least one video that was caught live on a station, and it was this thing that was going like really fast, just zipping by the camera. But I don't know what that was. You can call it a UAP. It looked like it was more than just like a plasma orb, but I don't know, like, what are these UAPs? What are they doing? Why are they here? I really can't know, and no one's explained it to me. And then we see with these events, even with like volcanic activity, we see these orbs. We saw it over Malibu during the fires, these like orbs that were just kind of, flying around, looked like they were checking things out. But I don't know what those are. And it looks more like some form of ball lightning. And I've been studying plasma, and scientists have proved that 99% of our universe is plasma. Also, plasma is intelligent, and plasma is conscious. So, we think about how things happen in our universe. It's more than what we have been told. There is another force that we can't control as people. And I don't know what is causing plasma to do what it does, but I've seen actually on camera many times plasma orbs that look like they are intelligent, like they're being moved by a conscious being, or that orb is conscious in a way and it's doing something. But I don't know why these events tend to have these things. Wondering stuff coming off planes is also messing with the engines of some planes. Stuff coming off planes. Oh, the spraying. I'm not sure if that means the spraying. Okay, so this is what I hear a lot, the smart meter. I know of houses that were in these areas that had smart meters that didn't burn, some that do burn. I don't think that's what is attracting the fire. It has to do more with the grounding of that structure, because new construction that hadn't been set up, hadn't been grounded, like the plumbing and the electricity hadn't been set up, those tend to survive more. Not always, but they tend to survive more. But I personally had been to a house that has a smart meter. I saw it. It was in a neighborhood in the Palisades where everything burned except that house. So I don't think that's the common thing. I do know it can start fires. There's a lawsuit in Oregon from the meter actually like heating up and causing the fire. But I don't think that's happening like big scale, like in a city, I don't think it's causing an entire city to burn. I think it can happen sporadically. And there is a actual lawsuit against the power company. And I believe it was in Oregon, it might be Washington, but a few houses did, their smart meters did catch fire. Okay. I'll read some of these starred comments. Hapgood, Doug Voigt, and Ben Davidson is right. So I don't know the first two. I just know like Ben Davidson. And so, everyone but different creators who have different specialties focus in on one thing. But, weather, solar activity, our solar system, and things that happen are a combination of different systems. Okay, it's not just humans, it's not just solar activity, It's not just what's in the ground. That I'm confident of. Okay, this is not just one thing causing this. They've also measured that the Earth's electromagnetic poles, there's a shift going on, and that causes changes on Earth. So there's just a lot of things going on. And I don't know if we'll ever fully understand it, but I do think that the powers that be know this and they're not telling us. And they're not ever going to tell us. And then I'll close out with this. This is Jeff Snyder explaining why we will never know this.
Now, it's a good thing that people don't understand plasma fire, because one viral video of my plasma fire videos and it's martial law for everyone. That's the deal. That's why I'm very glad they've suppressed this channel and stemmed the flow of the information and made sure that everyone doesn't understand the nature of plasma fire and the electromagnetic nature of it. Or we would have no other choice right now but to enact martial law. In these areas where there are fires, you'll see in the news clips people saying, yeah, I keep going back to my house, we're all evacuated, but I send someone back every couple hours just to make sure people aren't stealing our stuff. The police have to deploy patrols in these areas that have been evacuated to make sure people aren't coming along and stealing our stuff. It would be pillaging everywhere if people knew the nature of these fires and that the authorities have no control over them. The people themselves would be out of control and we would have no choice but to enforce martial law.
So they would never tell us because the problems it would cause would be so bad. It would have so many consequences that they're just not going to tell us. And what's better than the powers that be knowing more than the regular people? I would say that's how they prefer it, right? So we're never going to get an official answer, a clear explanation of exactly why we're seeing what we're seeing. So, you know, if someone says they know exactly what's causing this, we really don't. Okay. Everyone could be right. Maybe no one's right. But as far as having an official explanation for why we're having all of these fires, why we're having so many more volcanic eruptions and more earthquakes, they haven't even explained that there is a way to predict these things. But we know that there is a way. And we also know that there is technology that can cause these things. But they are still not even admitting to that. The government has not even admitted that there is weather modification technology. Even though the studies are public, it's been published, there are videos on it, I've made videos on this, the government continues to deny that this technology exists. So that's how far removed they are from us. So I'll close it out with that. Thank you guys so much for watching. And sorry for those that are disappointed, but if I'm not honest with my true feelings and my true theories, then I'm not doing my job. And it's the only reason that I have this channel, is because I was able to express an opinion that I thought would be very unpopular, that I thought would be rejected by the majority of the population. So if I just keep all of this in just to kind of, you know, keep things the same, I'm not doing my job. So I've always stuck to that. And I know, you know, everyone has their own hopes for what's going on. But the truth is, the official answer is never going to come. So this is what we are left to do. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.
They piece it together.